Friends, I am attuned to the mood of the congregation, and this past year has been one of dismay. I'm hearing from all corners that the world is getting worse, leaving us despondent and feeling glum. Tonight, I would like to fight that sentiment. There is reason to be down, but too much doom and gloom is not good. It can affect our very health and well-being. And more, too much gloom can take away our sense of purpose and our drive to make things better. There is indeed reason to be disheartened right now. We cannot pretend that all is well. Here is a partial list of everything that is wrong in the world right now and getting worse. Global warming is already here, causing harm and getting worse. Democracy is in decline throughout the world and in the United States. Women's rights are in decline. Our nation is growing more polarized. Acts of anti-Semitism are increasing in America. There is war in Ukraine, and thousands of innocent people are dying, with millions more displaced and homeless. If you feel that the world is going down the tubes, you have ample evidence. There are bad things happening, and they are real. But the bad things happening right now are not the only things happening right now. There are also good things in the world and signs of progress, and they are also real. If you want to feel that the world is pretty good and getting better, there is also evidence for that. We are familiar with the debate over the glass being half full or half empty. It's a useful metaphor. But I think it would be more helpful right now if we thought of our world not as a glass of water, but rather an enormous tray holding dozens and dozens of glasses. Some of the glasses are full, and some are empty. Some are 3/4 full, and some are 1/4 full. Some are half full, and some are half empty. Yeah, you got that one. You are a steward of glasses, a steward of beverages. And if you are a proper steward, you should rightly be concerned about the glasses that are empty or near empty. They need your attention. They are problems that need fixing. You should not tolerate some of these glasses being so empty, not on your watch. So you focus on the glasses that are in trouble. But a problem can arise if we only pay attention to the glasses that are wanting. If we only see the negative hour after hour, day after day, we can lose heart, grow distraught. We can lose our faith in our ability to make things better. How can I ever be happy when so many of the glasses are low? Why should I even bother trying to fill them? There's an old saying in our tradition, Chazak ve'emat, be strong and of good courage. Don't get discouraged. Do not be dismayed. It's a mantra we need right now. Chazak ve'ematz. Don't get discouraged. Do not be dismayed. Don't forget that a lot of the glasses in front of us right now are pretty full and getting fuller. For instance, we lament the rise of nicotine vaping. But let us also keep in mind that the decades-long campaign against smoking in America has been phenomenally successful, leading to better medical outcomes for tens of millions of Americans. Inflation is a glass that is in trouble right now. But let's not lose sight of the glass next to it, called the economy, that is quite full right now and humming. And next to that is the employment glass, and it is overflowing. If you want a job in America right now, you can get one. That is a very important glass. It deserves our attention too. And Ukraine. I want to take some time to talk about Ukraine because it is ever on our mind and a big determinant of our outlook on the world. The war in Ukraine brings new misery every day. Every day we see on TV a new building blown out and new accounts of unmarked graves. Every day these images come into our homes. It's enough to grow disgusted and lose faith in the world and humanity. To this, I would make 2 points. 1, this invasion and aggression is basically caused by a single man or a small group of men. But the response has been global. Millions of people have shown true heart and compassion, sending donations to Ukraine, helping the refugees who have fled across the borders. If anything, the war in Ukraine should restore our faith in humanity and make us proud of America and our role in this. And 2, while the war in Ukraine fills the newspapers, something quietly surprising is happening in the rest of the world. There are significantly fewer wars than at any other time in our history, in modern history. These past 30 years, including now, are an absolutely unprecedented period of peace. And not just compared to the time of the world wars in the first half of the 20th century. If you compare the past 30 years to the 30 years that preceded it, the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, you will find that these past 30 years have seen only 1/3 as many wars and a tiny fraction of the number of deaths caused by war compared to the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Ukraine grabs our attention. What we are not noticing is the wars that are not happening in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. We are living right now in an unprecedented time of peace, where wars are contained and genocides are fewer and smaller. Please, God, may it remain this way. This is especially true for America. We are not at war right now. We were at war in Afghanistan for 20 years, with another war in Iraq during that time. Our soldiers were killed in battle. Every day there were new pictures of coffins coming home draped in the American flag, until our government said, no more pictures. That was an awful time for our nation. Back then we thought, if these wars could just end, then things would be great. Then we can be happy. Here is a thought experiment. What would it take for us to say, I'm happy with the way things are right now? What benchmarks would we have to hit before we could say, I'm happy with the world right now. It's not perfect, but I'm happy about it. What would it take for us to ever acknowledge that these are the good times? Four Jews go into a restaurant. They're regulars. The waiter brings them their food, and a minute later comes back and asks, is anything all right? So maybe it's not our nature to see everything as rosy all the time. We kvetch. So what? I like people who kvetch. It's real. But something else is plaguing us right now that goes beyond the usual gripes and complaints. There is a sense of resignation, despondency, people saying, I wouldn't want to bring a child into the world right now. We can't have that. That's not going to fix anything. The great problems of the past have been overcome with determination and anger and hope. Resignation is a dead end. We must have hope that things can get better. And there is reason for hope all around us. Just 2 weeks ago, we got fantastic news about childhood poverty in America. For 30 years, the number of children in America living in poverty has been steadily declining. And then in the last 3 years, it plummeted further. That means millions of children in America are no longer living in destitution. But you don't hear that on the news. That does not pop up on your feed. The news people know that what gets our attention is the horrible things and the horrible people. They know we will watch it and click on it. Why do we fixate on the horrible people doing the horrible things? It's not like we live this way in other aspects of our lives. When we go out for a walk, we usually choose the most pleasant path, like a park or the beach. No one says, honey, let's take a loop around the refinery. Let's have a picnic under the overpass so we can really focus on the trash and the sludge. There have always been horrible things, suffering and cruelty. At the Passover Seder, we have a symbol for it. It is the maror, the bitter herbs. No generation has ever escaped the pain that it symbolizes. And the generations of Jews that have endured the darkest days of our history, they looked at those bitter herbs and found kinship with generations past. The maror is eternal, as the pain is eternal. To be a Jew is to understand that darkness is always present in our world. But maror has an antidote. Maror has an antidote. You know what it is. Haroset, right? That apple mush, wine-sweetened glop. Haroset symbolizes hope. And what do we do on Passover? We take a little bit of the bitter herbs and we smother it under a heaping spoonful of the sweet haroset. And the sweetness overpowers the bitterness. The lesson is presented before us and we literally ingest it. Hope overcomes despair. To be a Jew is to recognize the darkness in the world, but also to have hope that something better is on the horizon. Friends, one problem, as I see it right now, is that we are serving up too much maror and not enough haroset. So, I would like to serve you now some haroset. Here is some good news from 2022. 2 years ago, a 6th grade class in New Hampshire launched a tiny boat with a sail and a rudder and a tracking device and a capsule of messages. As this little boat tossed about the Atlantic, the sail fell off and the rudder too. But the piece of the boat with the capsule and the tracking device landed this year on a desolate shoreline in Norway and was recovered by a Norwegian 6th grader. She brought it back to her class, and live on Zoom with the class of students from New Hampshire who are now in the 8th grade, they opened the capsule together and read the messages. A research study was just published analyzing data from Charity Navigator on 700,000 donations that it monitored. The the study found that as the terror of COVID-19 landed here in March of 2020, people responded by being more generous. Giving in March of 2020 was significantly higher than in the previous year. More so, the surge of giving was most pronounced among people living in areas that were hardest hit by COVID. The greater the fear, the greater the generosity. Stopped at a red light during a sudden downpour in Washington, D.C. A dashboard camera records on video the car stopped at the light in front of it. Suddenly, a man dashes out of the car carrying an umbrella and hands it to a woman waiting at the crosswalk getting soaked. The woman opens the umbrella and holds it over a man in a wheelchair who was holding a newspaper over his head. The video goes viral and leads to an enormous commentary of people sharing stories of strangers performing acts of kindness. One guy wrote, "The same thing happened to me once in Brooklyn, but the guy just rolled down the window and chucked the umbrella at me." New York. In other news, Tom Hanks keeps photobombing wedding pictures. It seems that whenever he's on a walk or traveling about and notices a bridal party taking pictures, he just steps right up and joins in the pictures. And because he's Tom Hanks, they're thrilled. He has surprised brides and grooms in Central Park, on a beach in Los Angeles. Recently, outside a hotel in Pittsburgh, he stepped up to the bride and said, "Hi, I'm Tom Hanks. I would love to get a photo with you." And now he is in their wedding album. 3 weeks ago, in Newton, Massachusetts, an 89-year-old widow named Marilyn Ettinger went to the supermarket and her credit card was declined. She had lost her husband the month before, and this was her first outing on her own. She didn't realize that with the card tied to an account that was shared with her husband, it would automatically be canceled. The bill was over $100, and the guy behind her stepped forward, paid it, and walked away. Marilyn's children and grandchildren posted signs all over and went on the news to find this man and thank him. He is not responding. The mystery remains. Last one. An Uber driver taking a woman to the airport noticed along the way that flames were coming out of an apartment window and there were no first responders on the scene. He pulled over. The two of them ran into the building screaming and banging on doors until everyone was evacuated. When the fire trucks came, the two of them got back into the car and continued the Uber fare. She made her flight. In the Bible, when Moses died, the people were despondent. Moses had led them for their whole lives, and now he was gone. They looked to their future with trepidation. God took hold of Joshua and shook him out of his gloom, and with these words inspired confidence in him. God said, "Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and of good courage. Do not be discouraged, do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And Joshua picked up the mantle of leadership and led the children of Israel across that river Jordan and into the promised land. Friends, we too face a daunting future. We face challenges and problems that are monumental. The future of our country and our planet is at stake. And so I say to you, children of Israel, Chazak ve'emat, be strong and of good courage. Don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.